reviewed this last night, pretty smashed on Prophet Stream, but I don't remember anything that I said. Um, so this is going to be fresh for me. This wasn't good. This was it was worse than the last episode. I think everyone kind of acknowledges that. Not that the last episode was any good, like we went really big into that, why it sucked, but this one sucked so much. So yeah, let's get to it. So the episode finally opens up with a cold open or a flashback open. I thought we'd have one of those every single episode this year, but guess I'm wrong about that. But this is a flashback 20 years to when Moiraine and Swan are a healthy 60 years old, both of them, and the terrible Aiel War is coming to an end, which we can see from all the fires that are on the bridges and the screaming that's in the background. So good to know that that war is over. Um, so whatever. So Moron and Swan are talking about meeting Moron's parents because they're up here in the tower in the throes of young 60-year-old love, precisely because they're not out healing the wounded or helping the war effort or anything like that. There's kind of a reason why they were attending Guitar Moroso in a New Spring, at least in the books, because they were accepted and they weren't allowed outside of the city. And the tower was pretty much deserted because all the Aes Sedai were out there doing useful things. None of them were, talking about young 60-year-old love and their plans for the future. So you make one little change, like let's make Moron have a older or younger sister who looks older than her, and the cascade from that is this is not a 20-year-old girl. She was also wasn't a lesbian in the books or whatever, but she's 60 here because we've established that she's got to be older than a 70-year-old lady, so she's got to be 80 in the current run of the show. 20 years back, that makes her 60. 60 doesn't make her an accepted anymore. It makes her a sister of like 40, 35 years or so. So she wouldn't be in the tower in the throes of 60-year-old love. She would be out healing people or on missions or doing other stuff. But anyways, it's dumb, but it gets dumber because they go in to see Guitar Moroso, who, if you recall from season 1, Moron says this about her, right? With eyes so white she couldn't see anything, yet still she saw. Talk about foretelling. Why are they bowing to a blind woman? They knock on the door, they walk in, they don't introduce themselves. The first thing they do is bow to someone who can't see them bowing. This is so ridiculous. But getting back to that 40-year relationship, that one of the other interesting things about the whole Find the Dragon conspiracy in the books is how Swan and Moiraine parted ways almost upon being raised to the shawl, such that almost everyone forgot that they were really good friends as novices and accepted pillow friends even. I wonder, whatever. But here, they've presumably been sisters for quite a while. They've got the Aes Sedai rings. They've got the full blue dresses on. If they've had a relationship for years and years, I mean, people aren't going to forget as easily as, accepted who get raised and then go separate ways would be. There's pretty much no way Alana would get the conclusion or draw the conclusion that Moron and Swan were bitter enemies like she did in season 1, unless there was like a big lesbian falling out. But oh god, that's probably going to be in season 3. So anyways, they tell Katara that the war's ended despite all the fires and the screaming in the scene. And then Katara has her Rand birth vision, and she's conveniently unable to disclose the dragon's gender. Interestingly, as well, in this scene, they appear to have de-aged both Rosamund Pike and the Swan Lady, proving that they probably could have done something like an ageless look on the Aes Sedai. They just deliberately chose not to and make them all ugly. Yeah. So then we get the dumb intro sequence, and now we're back to Kyrian because this is where Swan Sanche arrived at the end of the last episode when we kind of got chapter 1 of the Great Hunt finally starting. And then Swan interrogates Moron after she had her throne set up, where she, gets really upset that Moron didn't tell her that she was stilled, and in the same breath also accuses Moron of trying to pass Lan's bond to Alana without consulting Lan. How would she do that if she was stilled, Swan? Whatever. Dumb show. All right, and then we get the face it on your feet scene. Let's just remember that tidbit of, manly wisdom. I honestly think this line was only inserted to be subverted and subverted hard in this episode. But we'll get to that. So it's also worth remembering, or maybe this is the explanation really from my notes, is maybe since the line came from a pussy bitch like Sholan who's wearing pajamas and cries all the time, obviously Rand didn't get the memo, and that's why he's kneeling constantly in this episode. Anyways, Lan says tuck in your shirt, but his shirt was already tucked in. Rand says something about seeing what Swan did to Logain, except he didn't. Logain was gentled not even in the White Tower. And the whole audience scene in front of Swan Sanche, where she basically acts like a big old tyrant. Rand also wasn't in the White Tower there either. So good job, show. You couldn't even have bothered to look at season 1 to just make sure. No, they couldn't. Anyways. So Lan accuses Rand of running away, but I'm kind of wondering, didn't everyone think the last battle was like over and done? So was Rand actually running away from something? I, I don't think he was. I think his explanation is actually quite correct. He thought, okay, that's over and done with. I defeated the Dark One. I used the one shot saw Angrial and beat him up by simping for Egwene. Now I'm going to run away and make sure I don't hurt anyone. Not that he's running away from any type of responsibility. He thought he was done. Then Lan, we get some women affirming women as Lan basically talks up Swan Sanche about her being a super awesome woman who came from a humbler background than even Rand. The face it on your feet line is actually a non sequitur because Rand asks, does Moron know you're doing this? And then he says, there's one rule for being a man, whatever else, face it on your feet. And then the Yakko cat crosses the courtyard and it just gets dumber. Okay. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Rand goes into the Amyrlin seat. They have some dumb opening dialogue lines that are completely made up. And then the Amyrlin says she has questions. And then they cut away to another scene in Kyrian, but it resolves to this ultimately where Matt's been kidnapped. So it looks like he got knocked out by somebody mysterious, and then he got taken to Fallen by Lanfear. And I'm pretty sure he got taken to Fallen by traveling and not by horse and not by the Waygate. But we'll see about that. Let's just bear in mind that ultimately Ishamael comes out of the woodwork. So what was Ishamael's whole plan of getting Matt to Kyrian? Was it just to have like a brief conversation with Rand and then not do anything about it? So, yeah. Okay, then we get a quick shot of the Supergirls in Falna with some mini donuts. Elaine is objectively better than Nynaeve in everything. Then we get the Damane fart competition. So they say some stupid things like few can wear the bracelet and fewer still can create a link with their Damane. That's not true. More can wear the bracelet than can wear the collar, but you're right, few women can wear it all together, but they all make a link with their Damane. That's kind of how the IDAM works. Still, I really like how we have Egwene and Mygan Mixedai with their pacifiers on, so that was kind of worth it for the scene. Sadly, they should be able to sense relative strength levels. They don't need to do this farting demonstration. And then Rena says she wants Egwene to work with her, like the Idom leaves Egwene a choice. So, dumb show. Okay, minute 13 of this episode, and everyone is still apparently in the courtyard except for Swan, who had to move her throne into the main room and berate Rand. Cho Chang comes from the Kyrian library. Varen is wearing her ring over her gloves, making it, very obvious. Well, I see what you did there. But in case it was too obvious, we're going to see a lot of other Aes Sedai wearing their rings over their gloves. So yeah, there's an Ogier map of the city that Cho Chang has. No, the Ogier kind of made the city. They didn't draw maps of it, so I don't know what they're doing here. Um, Ivan wants to go off somewhere and follow someone. Alana doesn't want them to separate in case there's a Forsaken loose in the city, and then literally 7 seconds later they separate. Alana's also wearing a ring over her green gloves, so I see what you're doing there. Leandrin is not in the courtyard, and everyone's suspicious of her, as they should be. Because Leandrin's also inside the house, and she's getting wet over this picture of teenage moron. So gross. Then we get the stupid scene of Moron pacing around. She berates and belittles Lan some more. Lan asks her to kill herself. I'm asking them to kill me, please. Lan, apparently working with Swan, puts Moron's brilliant plan in jeopardy. Let's just remember what her plan was. It was she was going to kill Lanfear, but then not be able to kill her, and then stay awake for the rest of her life. That was her plan. That's the plan that that Lan is putting in jeopardy. So there's that. Lan says that she needs to trust someone, and let's all remember that by the end of this episode, that someone is Lanfear. So, good job, show. So we get this, and this is basically the pose that Rand makes for the majority of this episode. But the conversation starts off with the spoke and the wheel analogy that is just completely wrong, because Rand is not the thing that turns the wheel of time. That's the one power, which is the harmony and or that it's the yin and yang. It's side and saidar working with and against each other to turn the wheel of time. Rand is not a spoke in the. He's not the wheel, and he doesn't dash it to pieces. This is stupid. Then Swan says something about Tower Law regarding the Dragon Reborn. They're just making that up. There is no such Tower Law. She's basically saying we're gonna take the dragon, put him in a cage, shield him, direct him as a weapon as we see fit. Basically ignoring all the prophecies that some of the Aes Sedai apparently know about. So is this Elida's plan that's being done by Swan? I don't know. So Rand gets shielded like a little bitch while he's holding the power, mind you, which is always harder to do. It's harder to cut someone off who's already, seized or embraced the source than if they're not. And let's remember, he impressed Logain with his strength in the last episode, even though Logain shouldn't have been able to see jack shit. But he impressed Logain, and Logain was hardly doing anything, and he had two sisters on him in episode 4 of season 1. He had two sisters shielding him. They were running themselves ragged, and he was hardly breaking a sweat trying to break out. And he ultimately did break out when they were sufficiently distracted. But Rand, who's more powerful than Logain, is shielded like a little bitch here by Swan. So he basically falls on his knees, stays there probably for the rest of the episode. It also appears that Swan is no longer actively channeling after a little while. So did she tie off the weave? I don't know. She berates Rand for taking too long and not getting enough training. So I guess he spent too long getting to the Logain Garden level and probably should have killed that male nurse in month 1 rather than month 6. She also says that apparently Moron taught her nothing, or she taught you nothing in this period. How could she teach him anything? That's a man who can channel, you dumb Amyrlin. And then says what everyone in the show is thinking. If only Rand was a girl, because then this would be so much easier. Thanks, Captain Obvious. You know what else would be easier for you, Swan? If it was a girl, you'd have a dragon that wouldn't go mad. But whatever. All right, so Egwene farts the loudest. No one saw that coming, so she wins the fart off. Everybody hears it in town. So the thunder shit scares people. Loyal startled. Loyal goes down the street, and then kids make fun of his dumb costume. Like, is this show self-aware or something? Then Loyal gets pulled into a side alley. Sees well, Nynaeve does it, but then he immediately sees Elaine and falls to his knees because he recognizes her as like his queen or daughter heir, whatever. He's also got crazy eyeshadow, and they resolve, the Supergirls resolve to basically get a Soldam Damane disguise, and they're going to go break break Egwene. I'm wondering who's going to be the Soldam, and are they going to scar their face like the Soldam in the show? That could be fun. All right, now we're on to Matt drinks the tea. So yeah, again, why did Ishamael have to bring Matt to Kyrian in order to kidnap him to bring him to Falm? Because he could have just done that from the White Tower, maybe. I I don't know. Ishamael is waxing poetic over being sleepless and other people hurting. What? And the only thing that I could kind of see is this scene is like the Zoolander scene where they give in to the power of the tea and they end up, sandwiched between some Finnish midgets. Um, that could still be happening in the show, but that that's what sprang to mind with this. This is beyond dumb. All right, so we get Hopper continues barking. That's at the end of this, but basically Hopper's the pet dog. Bane has eyeshadow and lipstick on, even though she's in the middle of the desert. The maiden hand talk is terrible and egregious. Big hand waves. It's not subtle at all, and they should be doing it in situations where they can't actually speak, right? Where they're like being scouts or spies or don't want to be discovered. Here, it's just like, let's be a dick to Pern and you know speak like deaf people or whatever it is. Um, their bucklers are made of metal. They shouldn't be. They appear to be in the Aiel waste for some reason, but it's apparently Toman Head is the same climate. I don't necessarily think that there are many northerly climates that are on the west coast that get regular sea breezes that would be this arid. It's usually more towards the equator. Like, you got to place your deserts on your maps where it makes sense, like behind mountain ranges and shit. But whatever. Um, Jolene is dead, so they beat and injure Avienda, so she meets her toe. That's not how Gieto works, but whatever. I don't care to get into it. All right, then Matt decides to drink the tea in the tea party, and then he looks into Moron's mirror, which is in this room for some reason. He meets his mom, who starts calling him a prick. We get Matt's hanging, and you can definitely see here on the screen, he's obviously hanging from his waist, not his neck. I know you don't want to hang him for real, but like, God, that's bad. Um, it's showing him in some of the different frames as Matt in past lives. So I think he was a black dude in this one, and in a separate frame, it looks like a chick. And if they do this instead of doing Matt's memories that he gets from the Elfin, um, I'm going to be pretty upset. No, I'm not. I don't want to see them even try that, and hopefully the show gets canceled before they even go through the redstone door frame. So whatever. All right, so Rand's still on his knees halfway through the episode. He needs Moron to save him. Um, Swan says, "Well, what would happen if one of the Forsaken got his hands on him?" she did get her hands on him. The dialogue is terrible. It was actually Swan's plan to get Moron to take all of them to the Eye of the World because she had a dream. She seems to be forgetting that. They move to a jail cell and he's still kneeling in the jail cell. They completely equate shielding with stilling. They start the retconning of the tying off of weaves, and now Moron all of a sudden believes in prophecies about like Falma and Toman Head, and Swan seems completely unaware because her plan was to have Rand declare himself in Kyrian, and it's stupid. All right, so Leandrin speaks with Barthanes alone. So Alnaver gets dismissed from her own house. That's pretty good. But little does Barthanes know that his mom's going to get payback on him. Leandrin orders Barthanes to kill Moron and his mom if his mom gets in the way, but she overhears this through the super secret and obvious spy hole. So Anaver has learned that her son is a dark friend, but she's also learned that Leandrin is a dark friend. She sets up to capture one, but it wouldn't surprise me that she completely and utterly ignores the other. You know, the more dangerous dark friend, the one who can wield the one power. You might want to go tell the Amyrlin that, hey, Leandrin's a dark friend. I just overheard her plot to kill Moiraine. Moron. I don't know. It's stupid. And then we get an even creepier scene. This is Matt's post tea party, I guess. And a Shaw mail expresses exactly how I feel about the show. I just want it to end. Rand standing up, but alas, it's in his dream. Thank goodness Lanfear's headdress is missing in this, though. Rand straight up asks the Forsaken for help, straight up provokes Lanfear to go on a murder spree. So that's all his fault now. But for some reason, Lanfear decides to go on a murder spree, like as was her way, I guess. But there are more subtle ways to kind of get to Rand. I don't think she needed to light a city on fire. But don't worry, it gets worse. So Maxim decides to look at himself for a good 37 seconds. Glad this was in the show. Just looking at his reflection in his dagger. Starts quibbling about Dragon Reborn and Forsaken, and then Alana says, "Would you rather fight an army of kittens?" I'm pretty sure this guy would want to fight kittens, gerbils, one of those two, whatever. The plot thickens, and by that I mean this just gets dumber. So Lan goes to interview Logain. Logain is really invested in his game of stones, which is Go, which I think is fine. Logain really wants Moron's dagger. He could just, rush at Lan. He even says, like, hey, why don't you just run me through with your sword? It doesn't seem very suicidal. It's still kind of weird. Then Lan offers him a key to the door, and it's like, dude, this guy wants to die. I don't think he wants his freedom. Lan says that Logain can see male weaves, which is incorrect on a couple of levels. So if he's gentled, he shouldn't be able to see the weaves. And more to the point, throughout the show, they haven't distinguished between male or female weaves at all. Because if you remember from season 1, episode 4, when Nynaeve does the Super Saiyan, yeah, you're seeing female weaves too. There doesn't seem to be much distinction throughout any of this. If there's a separation based on Saidin Saidar about who can see anything, but apparently Lan thinks that Logain can see male weaves, and therefore he might have a clue as to what's actually affecting Moron. So Lan finally puzzles out the shielding versus stilling fake mystery. He says this wonderful line that after half a year in an asylum, you're still a madman. Yes. Why wouldn't he still be? They reinvent the tying off of weaves as an age of legend lost art. He says something mean to Logain about 2 brown sisters who want to study a man who can channel. Dude, he's been gentled. He can't channel anymore. That's not what the brown sisters want to study. And by the way, Stepan killed himself. Wasn't killed by Logain, and it was with your sword, you fucking jerk. Anyways, then we get Lanfear's Rampage Part 2, and it's dumb. And then Pern with the Aiel women are going through the desert at night. Avienda got the shit beat out of her, but she's fine now. They continue to get G.A.T.O. wrong and turn, all discussion to sex. So I really hate the show Aiel, and I hope they all die. The Supergirls launch their super plan. So they hold the Soldom, or they hold the IDOM, which is all whole, and then they slam it on a Soldom somehow because it turned half whole when they tried to snap it. I don't know. I don't know where it turned into a half ring, but Anyways, it got around her neck, and then it started Iron Manning into this. So whatever. All right. So after farting so loud, she woke the whole town. Egwene has another spa day. Rena mentions that the reason why they should be on the same team is because the Empress actually has a great vision, which is everyone on the planet under the light. And yeah, they used planet. So Brenda says they should be on the same team to fight the dark. Egwene completely ignores that, threatens her with death, and then Rena walks away. So I don't see that reaction being kind of correct. Anyways, we're getting to the end of this. I'm running through this pretty damn fast because this episode fucking sucked. But so Barthanes gets tricked to go kill his aunt. He walks into an empty cell, sees it's empty, walks in some more. They slam the door. There's some women affirming women. So Anaver loves her sister now all of a sudden. She realizes she has a dark friend son, but yeah, again, no mention of the dark friend Aes Sedai. Might be a little bit more important to deal with, but well, we'll see what they do in the last episode. Probably nothing. So now we get a long ass Rand escape. So Varen comes in, dissembles, not that she needs to because she can lie. Leon is also wearing her ring over gloves, so that seems to be a thing. Varen takes the shield and then lets it go, so Rand finally is able to stand up. That's dumb. And they all walk out together, and somebody says that an Ogier steading once stood in the inner city. What? It's an Ogier grove. They built waygates by Ogier groves, and outside of their steading. The only city with a steading was Arder Hawkling's city that was deliberately built in a steading in the Carolyn Grass that never really took off. And the only other kind of quasi-steading city is Farmodic. If there was a steading in the middle of Kyrian, the Aes Sedai would know about it because they would lose their power as soon as they walked into the fucking steading. God, check the script. Where was the lore expert on this? They should have been able to read the script and said, actually, that word should be grove, not steading. And they got it wrong. Good fucking lord. Anyways, apparently, Varen, Alana, Tomas, Ivan, Matt, they're all in cahoots, and Land's running this all, so whatever. Rand realizes he provoked a riot when he sees all the fires. Varen knows the prophecy about Tomenhead too, and they smile. And then they all decide to go to the Waygate. This is it, yeah. The Ogier Steading. Then at the gate, at the foregate, you have all the Aes Sedai making it rain, and it's stupid. And then they finally get to the Waygate. So this is the final scene. Holy shit, we're going to wrap this up in probably under half an hour. Well, not under half an hour, close to half an hour. So Lan finally teaches Rand how to channel, or something. Teaches him more than Logain did. So he says, put on your Sidean goggles and look at Moron. But Lan then also begins to say that tying off weaves is a skill that's been lost since the Age of Legends. So just so you guys are aware, you tie off a weave and then you get a persistent effect even if the person is no longer channeling or if they're no longer in proximity to it. So a good example of this would be from season 1 where Karenni says, I've set wards so that they'll be alerted if people come, from Logain's army to try and free him. So the show's had weaves that were tied off. It's not just this. There's other examples potentially too, where so in the previous episode, Leandrin has basically got the 3 Supergirls shielded, not actively channeling into their shields because she wouldn't do that in the ways because that would be risking Machim Shin to come tell her something nasty. But yeah, Dark Fan could probably hand wave that away and said, well, maybe Leandrin learned this skill from Ishamael if it was a secret, but there's no way around this. I've set wards. Yeah, a ward is a tied off weave, you dipshits. It's not a fucking skill that's been lost since the Age of Legends. Idiots. Anyways, getting back to Lan, retconning the lore, and all this is done to make Moron seem like less of a moron for not knowing the difference between being shielded and being stilled. So, anyways, um, so Rand does some open heart surgery, saves the day. Lan says something about a Forsaken couldn't have stilled you. How do you know that, Lan? How are you all of a sudden the big one power expert? And for the record, Rand, who's Forsaken tier power, stilled 3 in Lord of Chaos all at once. So you're wrong on that too. All these special, like, yeah, the special effects are right out of a freaking video game. But anyways, Moiraine gets her powers back. Lan immediately apologizes for not getting it done sooner. So fuck you, Lan. We finally know why waygates require channeling in this dumb show, because if they didn't, then we wouldn't have this awesome showdown at the penultimate episode of season 2. But yeah, Swan shows up, so Rand immediately has to kneel again. Swan straight up uses the one power as a weapon, so she violates one of the oaths by attacking Lan because she's not in fear for her life or anything like that. This is just sloppy and bad. So yeah, so Swan breaks the 3 oaths on screen. Then she tries to extract the 4th oath that she swore from Moiraine to get her to close the Waygate. She mentions here, yeah, at the eye of the world, you failed. This was your plan, Swan, you fucking cow. It was your plan. But that being said, you shouldn't have to repeat yourself 3 times to Moiraine. She should fall in and obey you right away. In essence, it doesn't really make sense that Moiraine tried to do a plan that was against Swan's orders, because she literally wouldn't have been able to do that. But yeah, anyways. Lanfear shows up. Rand says something about, if you want my help. That doesn't make any sense either. But anyway, she beats the shit out of Swan, which is good. She somewhat threatens to kill Moron. Lanfear makes a dumb line about a broken Amyrlin is more useful than a dead one. And then she just up and leaves. Lan and Moron, especially Lan here. So Lan just decides to get up on Team Lanfear. So this is a dude whose whole country, all his people have been, killed by Trollocs, and he's been sworn to fight the Shadow until stone is no longer hard and iron is soft and all that other shit. And he's just like, yeah, okay, let's just roll with it. So let's just bear that in mind. Lan, Moron, Rand, we're all on Team Lanfear. And they go into the Waygate, which Lanfear doesn't even need to use, because she traveled, obviously, with Matt to bring him to Falma, or had some other method, because she probably didn't have him unconscious and take him to the ways and go back. Probably didn't go by horse. Maybe she went via the dream, but she can travel. That's the key thing. She can travel, and if she can, and she recently traveled from Kyrian to Falm, why the hell is she even indulging with this Waygate shit? It makes no sense. It's stupid. Everything about this is stupid. And we got confirmation that it's stupid, so I'm ending on this right now. Wheel of Prime did 515 million minutes when it added 3 episodes. This was less than half of what season 1 did. If you adjust for the minutes that are all the first 3 episodes, they run about 20% longer than the season 1 commensurate episodes. Moreover, also have to assume that nobody watched any of season 1 in these minutes, and then you're still at over a 60% drop in viewership. This show is probably one of the most spectacular failures, and we're not going to see it most likely on next week's Nielsen, because it won't even reach the top 10. It'll disappear. It'll be gone. So with that, I hope the writer's strike and with the actor strike, if that lingers long enough, Amazon should just go ahead and kill this show. Just put it out of its misery. You guys know it sucked. We all know it sucked. We're just having too much fun making fun of it. Although I'm not. I'm mostly drinking. But in the long run, I think I'm having fun making fun of it. But anyways, yeah. This episode really, really sucked. It's not going to get any better. Stay tuned for the finale. Fuck. I think I'm going to do sober October because otherwise I'm probably going to die next week. So cheers.